Cyclone Idai. What are the immediate dangers? Parts of southern Africa have been left devastated after Cyclone Idai swept through Mozambique, Malawi, and Zimbabwe. Hundreds of people. The storm made landfall near the port city of Beira on Thursday, March 14, and the subsequent flood submerged much of the city. But aid agencies warn that other areas continue to be at risk of becoming submerged. That's because it is still raining. Two rivers, including the Buse, burst their banks after rain in Zimbabwe and Malawi at the weekend, sending even more torrents of water into Mozambique. And more rivers risk bursting their banks, says Rodolfina Donko, Oxfam program manager in Mozambique. She told BBC Newsday that this rain was affecting most of the rivers in Mozambique that flow into the Indian Ocean. She said she expected more casualties. As late as Tuesday, she received information that people in Manica province, near the Zimbabwean border, much further inland from the epicenter of the crisis, Beira, were stranded on rooftops because one of the rivers had burst and the area had become submerged. In Mozambique, waters are expected to rise by up to 8 meters, putting at least 350,000 people at risk, says the Disaster Emergencies Committee. December. A similar situation is playing out in Zimbabwe. Hervé Verheuvel, spokesperson for the UN World Food Programme, said in a statement that heavy rains in Manicaland and Masvingo provinces continue to cause massive destruction. The Murawanyati Dam in Bora, Manicaland has overflowed, raising river levels, he added. An outbreak of cholera could lead to the death toll increasing exponentially. Cholera is spread through human waste in the water supply. The flood water itself isn't the primary risk. Instead, the risk this means people are finding it harder to find safe water. Larger groups of its. But that doesn't mean inevitable disaster. That's because cholera is relatively easy to contain when there is good healthcare available. People just need rehydration salts and to be put on N4 drip, he says. So, Mr. Cernishi says, there is the race. The worst case scenario is that cholera breaks out in an area that is inaccessible, where there is no healthcare and spreads, Mr. Cernishi said. Currently an area his organization is finding it difficult to access is Zimbabwe's southeastern town of Chimanimani, making it difficult to tell whether cholera has already begun to spread. Other waterborne diseases like typhoid and malaria also pose a risk, Mr. Cernishi says. Malaria in particular is likely to spread because the aftermath of the flood there is an increase in stagnant water, the preferred breeding ground of mosquitoes that spread malaria. Standing water also creates a risk of diarrheal diseases, Christian Lindmeyer of The Who told Newsday. Even though there is water everywhere, it is not safe enough to drink. Access to safe water is vital to prevent any further disease, says Mr. Lindmeyer. Relief efforts need to deliver clean water or water purification tablets. And that's the issue. Getting. The floods have cut off land routes and the only way to get to people is by air or water. While people may make it through the next few weeks with the energy biscuits and water purification tablets that are currently being airdropped, a more long-term threat of starvation still looms. Mr. Cernishi explains that the cyclone has compounded a crisis that was already there. He says drought in parts of Zimbabwe had already written off an estimated 75% of crops in the areas affected by the cyclone. Whatever. He warns of a food insecurity crisis in the next 6 to 12 months when people will face starvation as a result of the cyclone destroying their crops. As for the country that is worst hit by the cyclone, Mozambique, a total of 600,000 people are believed to be in need of help. writes Andrei Vornik from the World Food Programme. Monica Blajesco, December Director of Humanitarian Programs, warns that if more is not done, a secondary
raindrops, drop top, top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. You fucking on your bitch, yeah, that.